Hi everybody, welcome back. This is the second part of a two-part series where we're just having a bit of a conversation around budgeting and planning. The first part we touched on budgets and planning and what I called quick wins. And really what a quick win is just a small way of maximizing the budget or sort of fitting in small things into your new plan and trying to keep on top of fire and life safety compliance issues. Into this second part, we're really focusing on the planning aspects of things, and really what those plans break down to are twofold, right? You've got an issue where the planning could be more of a capital plan that you end up having to do for your fire protection systems. And so whether that's a sprinkler system, a fire alarm system, maybe it's a smoke control system. All of those have maintenance, all of those depreciate, all of those will break down over time and have progressively larger costs associated with the repairs. And if your building has those systems, you need to start planning out how to take care of them, what maintenance is upcoming, and when should you expect big maintenance or replacement. And staying on top of that is really how you do proper, good, diligent, be a diligent owner or a diligent manager of a property and try to stay on top of those types of systems, right? You don't want to get caught surprised, right? Nobody likes a surprise when it comes to big cost and fire and life safety things that they have to do. And so if you're doing the walk around or you're doing your hunt for quick wins from the first part, like I said, you want to start with some of the easiest ways to figure this out, which is by looking at your annual inspections. And so if you take a look at those inspections, you can start to get a sense of where the systems are at. Do they have lots of problems? Do they have no problems? Have the service vendors been very diligent in how they've been looking at things? Or on the other hand, have you seen sort of a variety of service vendors? Maybe there's been a lot of turnover with who's coming to look at your systems. And in those cases, maybe things can get missed, And so starting with those annual inspections is a really good place to find to level set how that system is existing within your property. If you don't know how to look at them, there's lots of different places you can get help. There are if you need a second opinion on whether a deficiency is really a deficiency, whether a recommendation is appropriate, you can look at an engineering firm like LRI, but you can also look at your service vendors. You can talk to them about certain recommendations and see why they're recommending something, and otherwise get to the bottom of these things. And really what you want to do with those plans is to make sure you've got a sense of how the maintenance is going and when should you expect big ticket items, right? So we've looked, we look at trying to make sure that you're staying on top of it can seem simple, but if it drags on a long time, you can wind up with a bigger, more costly problem. And so a couple of examples could be, for a sprinkler system, keeping tabs on the overall condition of the sprinklers themselves, right? Are they clean? Are they dirty? Are they getting dusty? Are they getting damaged? Are they in the right spots? Did somebody flag that there's been a wall moved and the sprinkler didn't come with it? Do you get cases where the components in your riser haven't been inspected? When's the last time you had flushing done? When was the last internal inspection completed? When is it due? Was it done on time? On the fire alarm side, right, you can find damaged devices. You can find notes about relays not working. You can find problems with auxiliary relays or auxiliary connections, right? Did your elevator recall work? Was your elevator recall even properly tested? Was it tested all the way through? Do we see that the elevators actually go to the floor they're supposed to go to? Similarly, mag locks, right? If you have lock hardware that's supposed to be connected to the fire alarm system, oftentimes it can just be tested at the relay. So the relay released the locks. It's supposed to have worked. Did the locks actually get looked at? Did the doors open? It's an issue if they didn't, and it's worth testing to make sure that they went all the way. And so depending on the service vendor, maybe they'll test all the way to make sure the doors are opening, or maybe you can team up with them if that's not a service they offer. Maybe you team up and you say, okay, when you release these, I'm going to have a few people go through and check to make sure that the doors are actually openable. Did the locks drop as they're supposed to? Like I mentioned, another one is smoke control. There have been a few projects we've been working on recently where we're trying to go through the developing a base building code compliance approach, and there needs to be a smoke control system, but we ask questions about, do you have the exhaust system? Do we know what the design basis is? Do we have any information about how that smoke control works? And lots of the time there can be a fan, or maybe somebody has a sense that there is a fan somewhere, but has it ever been tested? Do we know how it works? Is it still operational? Or was it decommissioned because it kept turning on? Or that somebody needed a new power connection, so they took it off and they didn't understand why it was put in the first place? There can be lots of different things like that. And so staying on top of why systems are working or why they're in your building are good measures to take, and can be things you want to plan for as you're working up a budget for the year, right? So whether you're trying to start something off to get caught up, or whether you're trying to stay on top of problems, that's really where you want to start. The other piece I wanted to touch on was emergency planning or fire safety planning. And as you're working through the systems, you'll also notice that there's a lot of pieces that the human element plays, right? So fire safety plans have an important role. Supervisory staff can have important roles. And we often see cases where emergency planning or fire safety planning is overlooked or not sufficiently prioritized. And what I mean by that is you can wind up with a case where maybe there's a base building fire safety plan that was drawn up a long time ago, but there isn't any sort of customization. There isn't any sort of acknowledgement that there are more tenants in the building than just one big lump of a building, and that people might have different roles that they need to take during an emergency or during a fire, so that they know what they're trying to do. And a good example of this is, where you've got maybe a multi-tenant building and some of the tenants are restaurants. And so if you have a restaurant tenancy in a rented building that you have to sort of work with each of these tenants on, there could be a base building fire safety plan, and that fire safety plan can detail how the building is supposed to work. It can identify supervisory staff. But if that training and that planning doesn't work its way down into the individual supervisory staff within that restaurant tenant, you can wind up with cases where the people who are in charge of taking certain actions or in charge of doing certain things don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Maybe they're new, maybe they've never been trained, maybe they've never developed it, and they just don't understand that they have to be part of that fire safety planning process. And what ends up happening is, if there's a fire, or if there's even just a fire alarm goes off, it can be unclear what people are supposed to be doing. And so if you don't have a plan that dictates to those to the people with supervisory duties, if they don't know what that is, they may not take the right actions, and then as a result, you don't have patrons taking the right actions. And so then the whole thing kind of deteriorates from there. And it all starts with having a proper plan that actually makes sense, that takes into account physically what's going on in that building, and making sure it's custom enough for the people who need it. And that can be as simple as executing a proper fire drill, right? Did you do recent training? When's the last time supervisory staff have been trained on what they have to do? We've seen lots of cases where we're going through to do that training. We do the training, then we execute a drill, and lots of times people don't take the drill seriously enough. So whether they just don't know, they're unsure, they've maybe read the plan, but they don't understand its importance. And what ends up happening is, people just kind of stand around with their hands in their pockets. They don't get that it's, important to train properly and actually go through the motions of the fire drill, so that you understand where there might be gaps or what you should do, so you can have kind of a feel for how things are going to play out in the event of an emergency. And so looking at your fire safety plans, looking at making sure it was up to date, tying it in with all these other pieces can really kind of solve a lot of problems and kind of get ahead of challenges. And so whether you're in the planning stages for your upcoming budget, or whether you're just trying to find some quick wins, all of these places are really good spots to look for where to get high value return on your investment, right? The best bang for your buck. And so hopefully that was a useful, hopefully these two pieces of recordings are useful in helping you develop those budgets or those plans. Certainly you can ask for more help. I'd love to hear from anybody if you've got any thoughts, comments, opinions on what else people could be looking for. But that's all the time we have for now. Thanks.